Last time on Zero to Hero, your boy Syl defeated his hardest challenge yet with Soto. Can he keep up the momentum and make progress towards becoming a true hero? Find out this and much more on this episode of Zero to Hero. So last time I basically blasted all of the Astral Acclaim special achievements to max out the gold received from the Wizard's Vault. There are still some items that are valuable in there, but we'll see what we can get when we have some leftover stuff. This week, all I spent the weekly and daily acclaim on was Mystic Clovers, which are definitely a must get each quarter. And as soon as I met the gold requirement for the Commander's tag, I actually needed to go get the Badges of Honor to actually buy it, which actually came pretty quick. I just joined a Zerg and was roaming between a few battlegrounds, got some of the Transcendent chests from the weekly World vs. World achievements, and I actually hit 1k achievement points, which gives you a few hundred Badges of Honor. After a brief stint in World vs. World, I had about 400 Badges of Honor and I had my 300 gold, so the Commander's tag was acquired. So that goal was achieved within about the first hour of play this week. So like most larger goals, I was again at a decision point. What now? Since collections, be it the Sky Scale or Envoy or anything, often require a fair amount of time gating, especially when you don't have the areas you need unlocked, I was spending my time doing quite a few different PvE objectives, Fractals being one of them. I'm almost at Tier 2 Fractals, and I climbed up just by joining Tier 1 daily and recommended groups throughout the week, and I intend on keep climbing in this way since they basically take about an hour or so to complete. I also have been working through the Heart of Thorns primary storyline thus far, which gave me quite a bit of mastery points and mastery experience. And for that reason, I have a new primary goal alongside the Sky Scale collection, Envoy 1. Envoy 1 and 2 are the legendary armor collections for raids, and they both award a full set of ascended, stat selectable armor, which are perfect for my goals. While I don't believe I will be able to complete either collection quickly, my thoughts are this. For the Envoy 1 set, I intend on setting it up as healer gear for Heal Chronomancer. While I would love to do full Minstrel's gear, I will likely use Harrier's gear initially since 100 CM does require some actual damage, and I'm kind of weary of the split phase for that Fractal with full Minstrel's gear. Instead, I will get additional rings and amulets for when I need to tank in raids. And the Envoy 2 collection armor will be used on a mix of Rampagers and Vipers gear required for Condi Virtuoso, but that is still a ways away. I feel like once the healer role is geared and viable on this account, I will be better suited to host my own raid groups without over-reliance on party members. Speaking of raids, I actually cleared Wings 1, 2, and 3 this week with some caveats. The first group I joined was a Wing 1 starting at Spirit Runs, so I did miss Veil Guardian, and though I wanted to play a Q or a DPS role since my DPS is not optimized, the Boon class typically gets less criticism for having lower DPS numbers. The commanders still wanted me to play DPS, and to my surprise, once we got to Gorseval, my DPS was pretty comparable to the rest of the team. We ended up one-pulling Gorseval and Sabbatha, and I went about my day. After clearing your first raid boss, you end up with a book that you have to double click that actually unlocks Envoy 1, and then it sends you all over Heart of Thorns, which made me realize I actually need to go do Heart of Thorns. So I did. I got some of the key requirements to continue Envoy 1, the ectoplasmic residue and the spirit threads and so on will take a while because they require weekly clears to actually achieve. So I'm not in a super big rush, but trying to get all these things done in the collection when the items become available really does help speed things up. Later in the week, I actually joined a Wing 2 full clear. The LFG posting said some KP required. I joined with no kill proof and just said DPS can shroom, which in all honesty is kind of a social engineering tactic because obviously I must know what I'm doing if I can do mushrooms, right? They didn't ask any further questions and I joined to find out they were already almost done with Slothazor, so so I actually got a free kill. Moving on to Trio, we basically just blasted them, no problem, and then we finally hit Matthias. I was actually pretty stressed about Matthias because I only have power DPS first off, and secondly, I don't have the Forsaken Thicket Waters Mastery track, which is actually under the raid masteries. So I was unsure if I was even able to clear the corruption using the wells in the arena. It turns out you can still clear them, you just take some extra damage, which is okay. After we slapped up Matthias, because this group is a bunch of Giga Chads, the comm said, I'm doing Wing 3 next if you want to stay. So of course I did what every pug should do and not say anything and just join the next wing. So for escort, it was pretty straightforward. We actually got fast siege, and while I was not assigned to the back warg position, I took it upon myself to help with the back warg. Like I said, we ended up getting the fast siege achievement, and for keep construct, the group actually decided to do the challenge mode, which is more or less standard, so we just blasted that with one pull, and then we ended up blasting Twisted Castle in one run, and lastly we get to Zera. Now, knowing that I need leyline gliding for Zera, but also knowing that I don't have leyline gliding for Zera, I decided to do what pugs do best. Lie. I jumped off and immediately typed, oh shit, I don't have leyline gliding on this account, which was responded to well by the squad, and shout out to these gamers. They just powered through without even missing a beat. The commander did almost KO themselves, but saved it in a miraculous feat, which was noticed by pretty much everybody, including myself. And so I got carried, which is great because now I can effectively skip Zera while still completing Envoy 1. I don't really intend on skipping Zera, but I can choose to do so since no other items are locked behind killing Zera, meaning leyline gliding is less of a priority, though I'm still going to be working towards it before other masteries in Heart of Thorns. So now that I have some cleared instances, I just need to go back and collect a couple of items and then get a few weekly clears from Wing 1, and then I will be done with Envoy 1. While I'm not busy doing that, in the meantime, I still have a few things to do for the Sky Scale, but we can work on these in tandem. Additionally, I will be working on unlocking areas in End of Dragons, unlocking the Virtuoso specialization, and climbing into Tier 2 Fractal. With that, I want to talk a little bit about the raid community, and a decent amount of this does carry over to the Fractal community as well. And the truth is that they get a bad reputation, but the vast majority of them are helpful and understanding. And if you're actually trying and have somewhat of a build put together, even if you're far from the posted benchmark numbers, most people just don't care. The raids have been power crept with the new specs and balance and weapons. Raids are really truly easier than ever and should definitely be considered as an easier, less grind heavy solution for getting legendary armor. The amount of grind that I have done thus far in Soto is more than I'd ever like to do, so getting into Heart of Thorns and raids is a welcome change in gameplay. And in all reality, it will be easier for you than it is for me because I am not joining discords, joining guild runs, or relying on any friends that I have met in game. I've been offered help in getting mastery points, doing raids and strikes, but for this playthrough, it would defeat the purpose. I was able to clear Wings 1 through 3 with 45 hours played on the account. Less than half of what people consider to be the minimum tryout playtime for an MMO. And relying solely on pugs not getting into established groups with playtimes and trainings is obviously the worst way possible you should go about doing this. But like I stated many episodes ago, I am doing this to show you a reality. I am doing this in the hardest, most inconvenient, inconsistent way that you can do it, and it is still remarkably easy. The community is welcoming for those willing to put in the work and participate, and I have yet to be noticed or called out during these groups, even when I am clearly leeching the run. Though I did get noticed in a Fractal Tier 1 group, so what's up, homie? Once I get full masteries, I am sure that I will be getting the clear in a true sense, participating and pulling my weight, but 2 out of 9 bosses being free is really not a horrible split, all things considered. So now I'll pose you some questions and then share my thoughts on the questions from last week, and then finally get into some comments. So my first question this week is, what do you think of raids? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Have you tried them? My second question is, what do you think the most useless mastery unlock is? I've been going through these mastery lines and there are quite a few of them that are just complete trash, but I want to know which one you think is literally there for no reason. To share my thoughts on last week's questions, my absolute favorite content, number one on the list, is Heart of Thorns. The maps feel good to play. There is good event density. The metas are impactful. They have meaningful, useful rewards. The first 3 raid wings are a great side story with hints of nostalgia and mystery. The introduction of the first set of elite specializations literally changed the game. Like, every single class had a banger elite specialization. Dragon Hunter, Herald, Druid, Chrono, Tempest, Berserker, Daredevil, Scrapper, Reaper. Like, every single one of these is loved by the community and still has viable builds that get played today. POF has a similar standing, except the maps are a little bit worse. I feel like Heart of Thorns elite specs came out of the gate super hot. While POF was good, many of the elite specs initially were undertuned and then overtuned for a lot of time. And now they have a good amount of them that are either niche or unplayed or just completely broken and not used. Living World Season 3 and 4 are both good, and I think Icebrood Saga is better in terms of repeatable content. I think Living World Season 4 is better just because Volatile Magic is so good. And then lastly, we have EOD, which has the largest mismatch of elite specialization enjoyment. Some of them are bangers like Virtuoso, Willbender, and Mechanist, while others are garbage or forgettable. I mean, Spectre, Bladesworn, Untamed, Catalyst. Not to say that they aren't good. If you enjoy those classes, they just aren't great. And for my least favorite, it is by far Secrets of the Obscure. I think Weapon Master is great, but the new weapons were very hit or miss. The story was good at start, but they started to flub it by making you complete events throughout. The introduced excessive grinds like rifts to get through any major story section or any major rewards. It just feels bad. And I think it's still worth getting, like, especially at $25. It is definitely not a bad expansion to buy, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. Let's give ArenaNet some credit for pricing it at $25 because that is an absolute steal. Like, World of Warcraft charges $70 for an X-Pack plus a monthly subscription. Diablo 4 was $75 for the base game and it turned out to be garbage. So $25 is totally worth it. It's a deal, but comparing it to the content that I enjoy playing, it is definitely not the best of the bunch. Now let's see what you guys thought. My man Xander is absolutely unhinged with IBS being number 1 and Soto being number 2. I don't hate you for it, but damn, bro. Like, additionally, your thoughts on Spectre. Spectre is a fun class to play, but I think you're right, it's not really popular. If you are very sweaty, you can do some cool stuff with Spectre, but it's very complicated. I think it's a good pick to banish to the Shadow Realm if you're going to banish one, though. My man Incasto is a Fractals and Strikes enjoyer, which I agree with you 100%. They are some of my favorite content types. I think you need to throw raids into that mix, though. And he said Reapers, Willbenders, or Deadeye in PvP context, which I don't play a lot of PvP, but if ArenaNet Shadow Realmed the Reaper, the entire community would explode. That specialization is probably the community's most favorite elite specialization. Marina likes the original Living World Season 1, which is another kind of completely unhinged take because the first 3 updates were just like repairing signs and killing like 3 random mobs. This is before any of the elite specs were in the game. However, I will say this, the Tower of Nightmares update and the original Battle for Lions arc, where the town was literally destroyed in game, was one of my first like, oh shit, they really did it moments in any game. It's hard to recapture that excitement of logging in and saying like, yeah, the main hub of this game is now a meta event. It's destroyed. Juranov likes Path of Fire and Living World Season 4, which is what I was expecting a lot of people to say. It is a pretty common sentiment, and at the time it was great. It was like the golden age for content releases, and I know I said Heart of Thorns is awesome, but what sucked about Heart of Thorns was that it was followed by a super long content drought, which Path of Fire didn't really have. It seemed like ArenaNet was running on all cylinders when POF and Living World Season 4 came out, and they were trickling that out to us. Relentless Knights brought up how bad bad skiffs were. And let me tell you, when they were hyping End of Dragons for like a year after Icebrute Saga was getting wrapped up, I was so doomed about skiffs and fishing, and I thought it was going to be whack, and I was right. I barely interact with skiffs and fishing. Putting ambergris behind fishing was okay, but if they added another reliable farmable source outside of fishing, it would be a completely dead thing. It would just kill fishing if they just had meta events drop ambergris. I'm sure some people enjoy it, but personally, I think fishing is not really an expansion cornerstone feature, so I'm not really sure why ArenaNet went with that or that expansion. Some guy says he would put Bladesworn out of its misery, which I feel you there. Honestly, I haven't played a lot of Bladesworn as a DPS or as a healer, but it is a very forgettable class. In PvP and World vs. World, it has its places, but I know that its build versatility really isn't there, and I feel like in End of Dragons, many elite specs fell into that position where the playstyle is the same, the traits are all the same, and you're just stuck. I definitely prefer Berserker, or even more so Spellbreaker, over Bladesworn. And there were a ton of other replies to the questions, and if I didn't highlight your response, just know that I did read them all and I enjoyed hearing your takes. With that, I want to thank you all for watching, and a special thanks to all of my subscribers. I am getting dangerously close to 3K subscribers, and once we break that, I hope to be able to do something special for you guys. Thanks again, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.